Morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, Jesse's Occupational Awareness Show. I'm your host, Jesse. I can say it today, I couldn't say it yesterday. Happy Saturday. I had a request from one of my viewers who I think has watched a pretty decent amount of the content asking why and how I became a segregation officer. Now, a lot of times whenever I get viewer comments on the more recent videos, they'll ask questions that I've covered in some of the archive videos, and a lot of times I'll reply with a link to that video so that way the individual can enjoy that content. Well, a lot of times I don't have the actual answer in the video that I thought that I had. I was going to send this individual a link to a video that I did talking about seg and when I was assigned to it, and I went back and watched the video and I realized I didn't actually explain why I was led into that direction, just that I wanted it. So I'm going to go in detail in this video. And one of my other viewers who asked a comment, could I speak about addiction behind bars? For that, I apologize. I really can't. I don't know much about it. I know it is a thing. I never made a big sell bust on Pruno or hoarded medicine or anything. I'm unfortunately not the subject matter expert for that, so for that I do apologize. But for this one, I am the subject matter expert, and the question was, why and how did I become a segregation officer? Okay, when I hired on with TDCJ, the only experience I had with corrections is what I had seen in TV and movies. I knew that there was going to be conflicts between officers and offenders, inmates, prisoners, convicts, turd shitheads, digbags. I didn't know, and nobody does until they hire on, actually how intense and how bad it could be, okay? I went in with the mind frame that these are adults, they're just going to do their time, they're ready to go out, and I'm just going to kind of be there to supervise, open, close doors, maybe break up the occasional fight, that kind of thing. So, went through the academy, I went through my OJT process. OJT took about 3 weeks, give or take. I didn't know this at the time, I do now. By the second week of my OJT process, the unit went on lockdown. Units typically every year-ish would go on lockdown so that way they could do massive cell searches. Now you might think, oh, but Carter, you do cell searches all the time. No, we really didn't. We would get a paper that had us search 5 cells a day. Fortunately, a lot of times, to save time, we would go in, look around. Looks good. Let's pretend like that bathroom back there is my cell. Here's the search. Roll 14. Check. Cell search complete. Is that the right thing to do? Nope. Did it happen? Yep. Was I the only one that did it? Fuck no. A lot of times we did go into comprehensive searches. A lot of times it went just like that. Okay, that's just the reality of it. So, getting into it. Once the unit went on lockdown, offender movement was highly restricted. Classes were suspended. Work detail still took place, but mainly at the chow hall. Medical still took place, but any kind of activities, classes, miscellaneous work detail, all that shit was stopped. Okay. There were extra COs brought in. They were called in for overtime. One of the few times Stiles authorized overtime. So there was an overflow of officers coming in, and the whole unit was going to get shook down. If you watch those episodes of Lockup where you see the platoon of officers marching and they're stomping and calling cadence and they come in and they destroy the buildings, that's essentially what this was. Well, the shifts that were coming on, general population, ad seg, this had been covered in turnout. They knew it was time for lockdown. when you go in for OJT, all you report to is your field training officer, and you would just get assigned to different places. So this was taking place, but I didn't actually know about it. I didn't know the unit was on lockdown. Okay. So I'm coming in, mustering up with Officer Lewis with the other OJTs, and we're going out to our shifts. And there are COs just everywhere. Places are getting shook down. I remember being in segregation, and there would be 5 officers moving around, searching cells, pulling guys out. Instead of putting them in the day room, they'd pull an offender out, put him against the wall. 2 officers would hold him there. If he got squirrely, fucking head went into the wall. Yeah, on camera and everything. One would go in, search the cells, shit would get thrown out the doors, everything hit the floor. Once they were done with that, they put the dude back in the cell, and a push broom went down, and everything got swept up going around. And sitting there, I remember being in the picket like, holy fuck, this is awesome. Okay, good. Sweet. Now here's the reality of it. When I worked in general population there in the OJT process, yes, it was uncomfortable. When you go in the pod, you got 84 of them turds all out on the floor. Now some would be at class, some would be at work detail, okay, so minus 20-ish or so, but you got all them dudes in the pod, and anything could erupt at any time. I never felt comfortable in there, and that's a good thing, because the second you walk into one of those pods and you feel comfortable or everything's good, that's when it's time to leave. Complacency set in, and the offender's going to notice it, and something's going to happen. So I never felt comfortable in there. I wasn't scared. Okay, we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. I know some of you old school old hands will be like, oh, you just couldn't handle it. Whatever, man. I did feel uncomfortable. All right. In SEG, there wasn't a whole lot of inmates moving around. You'd move them from the cell door to the day room, from the day room to the cell, to the shower, to back. It felt safer. Okay, for lack of a better description, it felt the safer place to be. Plus, when you worked general population, there was a picket boss, and there was you. And you were taking care of 3 pods, 84 times 3, do the math, 8, 16, 24, 4, 8, 12, 272 inmates, I believe it was. Whatever. One individual responsible for all them. It could be a little bit overwhelming at first. And if it's not, then you're lying. SEG, most you could have at one time was 84. They were all behind the doors. So I very naively, from what I had experienced with lockdown going on, thought that it would be the easier of the choices. That was it. I thought it was going to be an easy ride. They're in their cells. They're doing their thing. I had heard the noise. I had heard the banging. But until you're actually day in, day out, you're not really used to that. Plus, when you're on OJT, it's a pretty cake schedule. You come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's when the field training officer comes in. You're clocking out around 14:30, 1500. I remember one time I was in SEG, it was at 1500, and Officer Lewis was absolutely pissed because she couldn't leave until all of us had checked out with her. So you're getting out pretty early. Once you get on shift, it only takes one shift, 4-day shift, to realize, holy shit, this is nothing at all like OJT. That 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening time, waking up so early, yeah, check out my segregation tour for that one. So the OJT shift is pretty quick. It's not uncommon at all, and I saw it all the time, a lot. Officers make it through their OJT. Some of them don't make it past the first shift. You never actually hear what happened to them other than this individual will not be returning for it. What did Lieutenant Raymond say? This individual will not be returning for the shift. And that was it. That's all we heard about it. So, yeah, the answer to why I became segregation boss, I naively thought it would be easier than general population, and in reality, it wasn't at all. How did I become seg boss? Once you got 2 weeks into your shift, you your shift on OJT, on the job training, you put down a request for which shift you want. You had day shift, night shift, general population, segregation. And I remember I'd come back into Officer Lewis's office. It was after lunch, piecing things together. Once you had your chow break, you reported back to the FTO, and they would send us back to whichever part of the building we were going to get our training at. And there was a captain in there. He was an older white guy, looked crusty as like the French fries that he had on his arm. He had enough to have been there for 30 years. I just remember him being in there. He was leaned over her desk doing some paperwork, and Officer Lewis, Officer Carter, this captain, again, I don't remember his name. He looked up at me, nodded. Good afternoon, Captain. How are you today, sir? She said, he's segregation supervisor. I said, oh, well, I'd really like to get assigned segregation. I just said it kind of absent-mindedly, and he stopped. He looked down. We sure could use you. And went back to doing what he was doing. And in my mind, I said, fuck yeah, I got a hook in. I done met the seg supervisor. He's this old grizzled captain. Man, that unit's got to be run just as tight as a drum. Better run like a well-oiled ship. It's got to be very organized. If this hardcore guy is running it, then it's got to be the best place in it. What he was actually doing was filling out paperwork for his resignation. It was leading up to his retirement. I didn't know that. There was going to be a whole new shakeup of supervisors that was going to take over it, and it wasn't that guy. So here I am going in thinking it's a lot safer. It's an easier gig. I got this grizzled old veteran running the place. No, none of that happened. The reality came crashing down very early on about how difficult segregation could be, and any plans or thoughts or hopes that I had of climbing the ranks, sergeant, lieutenant, they were very, very quickly abolished. From there, it was just lace up your boots, go in, do the shift, go home. One shift leads into another, a couple of years go on, and it came to an end. So that's why and how I became a seg boss. Hope you've enjoyed the video. All you armchair quarterbacks, silverbacks, want to pick aparts, go right ahead, start picking it away. Can't wait to hear it. Everyone take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your Saturday. I'll see you in the next video.